pod bay doors.
Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of the Cinematic Traveler Podcast. I am your intrepid movie exploring host, Chris, and on this episode, this very special extra bonus episode, I am going to be bringing you my review for a little psychological horror film set in an assisted living community in New Zealand. And this movie is entitled Rule of Jenny Penn, directed by James Ashcroft and starring the great Jeffrey Rush and the great John Lithgow. And how can you not get excited for a film starring those two incredible actors? Will it live up to their reputation, or will this be another horror dud that tends to happen at the beginning of the year? Well, you'll just have to continue listening to find out. I'm excited to talk about because I do love Jeffrey Rush and John Lithgow, so this is going to be fun. But before we get into all that, I am going to ask you to do a favor for me. Whatever you're listening to the show on or watching on, somewhere there is a follow or a subscribe button. If you go ahead and tap that, just tap it in. I would appreciate it, as it does help me and the show, but it also helps you because you won't miss any future episodes. Plus, you could go back and listen to my previous amazing reviews and hear my sexy voice. Also, if you could share the show with your friends, families, annoying coworkers, I don't care, anybody, I would appreciate that as well. Share it on your social media. You can follow me on my social media. I would say Instagram is the best way to do that, at Cinematic Traveler Pod. I do have an X account and a Blue Sky account, but whatever. I don't hardly ever go on there. I do have a YouTube account. That one I think is at Cinematic Traveler Pod, so you can leave reviews and comments in those videos as well. Plus, you can get in touch with me with my email address. That one is thecinematictravelerpod@gmail.com. So you have plenty of ways to keep up with the show and get in touch with me. And I got through all of that rigmarole quick, fast, and in a hurry so we could dive into this episode. I would ask how you're doing, my beloved listener, but it feels like I just wrapped up my last episode, which in fact I did. I am doing all of this in one night because I have such an amazing social life. No, because I am a podcasting juggernaut. That's what it's all about. I care about you. I sacrifice for you. My evenings where I could be out there looking for the love of my life. No, I'm in here talking about these movies for you, to help you, so you could go find the love of your life, because this will give you a great talking point. You know, you got a gym crush or a work crush or something like that. You can just walk up to him or her or whatever. I don't know anymore. Whatever you want to say, and just be like, hey, I got this really great podcast you should listen to. Bam, I got an in for you. I am going to be the best man at a lot of weddings because of this podcast. And I am laying it on really thick before I get into this review, because being behind this microphone this long has scrambled my brain. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into our review for Rule of Jenny Penn. Again, directed by James Ashcroft, and I looked him up on IMDb. I have not seen any of his other films, so this is my first foray into his filmography. Now, very quickly, I do have to over-explain a few things. I am going to give you a spoiler-free review, as well as a spoiler-free plot synopsis. Now, in that plot synopsis, I have hidden two movie quotes in there from films that either share some DNA with this movie or maybe run parallel to it. If you can identify those movies, get in touch with me through the various means I told you earlier about in this show, and I will give you a point for each one that you get right. At the end of the month, I add up all the points, and whoever wins gets to pick a film for me to review next month. And if you only listen from time to time, first of all, shame on you. You can still play, just have some fun. Let me know you're out there. It does get lonely behind my fort of blankets and talking into this microphone, so it is nice to hear from you. And while it may seem uncool, that is everybody's favorite time of the week. That is to be uncool with Chris. Okay, we open the film with Judge Stefan Mortensen, played by Jeffrey Rush, giving his final ruling on a case when suddenly he has a stroke. Because of what this stroke has done to him and his body, Stefan has been placed in an assisted living facility. Now, Stefan is a proud, successful, intellectual man, and this change to his life has him saying something like, "When someone dies, you think about your own life. And I don't want to grow older. I don't want to be condescended to become marginalized and ignored by society. I don't want to be the first person they let off the plane in a hostage situation." Hint, hint. And not only is he struggling with these changes to his body as he's getting older, he is also having trouble adjusting to his new living situation with his roommate Sonny, played by Nathaniel Lees, as well as fitting in with the other elderly people in this facility. Now, to make matters worse, this particular place has a resident bully, Dave Creeley, played by John Lithgow, who threatens the other residents with the help of his evil little puppet, Jenny Penn. Now, Dave is able to move in and out of the other people's rooms, forcing them to follow the rules of Jenny Penn, with Jenny Penn telling them something like, "We're friends till the end, remember?" Hint, hint. Well, Stefan decides that he will not be bullied and intimidated by Dave, but since the staff don't believe him at all, he begins to form a bond and friendship with his roommate Sonny, and they try to put an end to Dave and that damn doll. Will these grumpy old men be able to stop this grumpier old man? Or will the puppet master be too much for them to handle? Now, I won't answer those questions and spoil this movie for you, but I will give you the best review for The Rule of Jenny Penn in all the podcast and YouTube universe, nay, in all of the universe. Now, if this is your first time listening or you haven't listened in a while, I do break my reviews down into 3 segments: the good, the bad, and the nitpicky. The good are the things that work for me in the movie. The bad, obviously things that don't. And the nitpicky, these are things that are neither good nor bad, just sometimes Hollywoodisms or sometimes silly things in these movies that make me laugh. And as I'm trying to do with this podcast, I would like to make you laugh. Because if there are 2 things in this world I like to do, one of them is to follow arbitrary rules set by the women in my life and to make people laugh. And hopefully I am succeeding at least in one of those things. I can tell you it ain't the one with the women involved. Or I wouldn't be sitting here recording 2 episodes back to back on a weekend night. Yes, I am sacrificing for you. I am the hero of this story, not the podcaster you need right now, but I am the podcaster you deserve. Isn't that the line? You don't get any bonus points for that. You sure as hell don't get no bonus points if it's wrong and you correct me. All right, so let's go ahead and move into the good of Rule of Jenny Penn.
Sounds pleasant.
And I'm going to start with the most obvious. I have already stated this. I am a fan of not only Jeffrey Rush, but John Lithgow, but especially Jeffrey Rush. When I saw the preview for this and I saw these 2 actors together in this type of movie, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm there. I'm there. That's why I'm doing this review, because I had to see this movie. I will let you know I was the only one in the movie theater. I think 2 of the last 3 movie theaters I've been in, I've been all by myself. So I don't know if that bodes well for this film, but yeah, the performances are great. I mean, Jeffrey Rush, come on. The name a bad Jeffrey Rush performance. You can't. Hell, he was in that awful movie. Was it Gods of Egypt? He had a small part of that. He was still good in that shitty movie. So yeah, he is great here playing this judge. You see him at the very beginning and he's sort of arrogant, but yeah, he's arrogant through a lot of the beginning of the movie where he looks down on people because he's a learned man. He's an intellectual and he is above this riffraff. Well, this stroke kind of brings him back down, and he's struggling with that. He's struggling with the fact that he's grown older and his body is failing him and letting him down, and he can't do the things that his brain wants him to do, which is something that is such a joy as we get older. Maybe that's why this movie resonated with me so much, because yeah, he really sells that. He has moments where he sort of blips out and he loses where he is or what happened for the last several minutes, and he wakes up either in a room by himself after he's been in a crowded room, or there's someone different sitting in front of him and he's dealing with that confusion, and he's fighting the staff because, again, at the very beginning he's trying to prove that he can still do the things that now, unfortunately, because of the stroke, he can't do. And then having to deal with Dave, who is this threat, and as a man, the things that he could do, he can't do anymore. So he's really struggling with this predicament. He's kind of losing pride, as it were, in himself as, this man who had made something out of himself as a judge, but also, and I will say this, I don't know how it sounds, but, I've already mentioned it, as a man, if someone's poking their finger in your chest as a man, you want to fight back. Well, if you're not able to, that really brings down when you have to sort of bend to that person's will, especially at that point in your life. it's almost they're like they're back in grade school. However, now you've been through all of your life's experience and you're like, Jesus, I can't do anything with this bully. I can't fight back because my body won't let me. So he really is great at selling all of that. Plus, he's just such a smart ass through a lot of this movie, and it's hilarious. I mean, he has some lines in this movie where I was laughing out loud in the movie theater, and that ties in with the other great member of this cast. Of course, that's John Lithgow as the bully, Dave. He does a great job. He's I don't want to say he's hamming it up because he has his scene chewing moments where he is enjoying being this bully, but he also has just God, he is so bad in this movie. I mean bad like his character is just a bad person. He's mean. He does these little things throughout the movie where you're just like, God, this guy's such an asshole. I want somebody to stand up to him, but this group of people he's in, they're elderly, so they can't fight back. And he knows it because his body hasn't let him down. He can still do anything. He can walk around and run. I give John Lithgow credit. I don't know how old he is now, but he was dancing around and running around and climbing on things. I'm like, damn, he's still going strong. Good for you, John Lithgow. But he's having so much fun playing this evil character. I mean, he is just an evil character. There's points where he'll just go over to the table and grab someone else's food and start eating it, and they just look at him. And it's like I said, it's like being in school and this bully's doing things, and they can't fight back, and they look at him like, oh God. There's a point in the movie, I'm not going to spoil anything, but where Dave isn't around, and you could just tell how much happier everybody is. But yeah, Lithgow is he's chewing it up and he's creepy as fuck, man. I'm telling you, he'll appear in people's rooms. Like I said, he can travel in and out of their rooms at night, and he's got his means and how he does everything. And they kind of give his character a little bit of backstory so you understand how he can do everything. But yeah, he'll be there with that creepy ass little doll, and he'll give it a voice, and it's just unnerving. And there's this great thing that I'll get to with the direction where there's this sheet that Stefan uses to kind of separate the room between him and Sonny. And it's this red sheet. And the way it's lit, you can see all the shadows, and that puppet comes around. And oh my God, it's just, like I said, it's unnerving, it's creepy. And just Lithgow is selling it. So he is this great adversary to Jeffrey Rush, the judge, Stefan, who is smarter than Dave. But Dave knows that he holds the cards because he can do things that Stefan can't physically do anymore. And Dave can still, he can push people and he can fight people and he can be mean because he knows they don't have the ability to stop him. So, but yeah, it's a great adversarial relationship between the two. They're giving great performances. They know exactly what to do with these characters. It was a pleasure to sit here and watch that movie. I am telling you, halfway into this movie, I was just loving it. From the performances, the script, the direction. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself, but yeah, I really did enjoy watching these two actors on the screen. And the other actor that I had never seen before, I'm assuming he's a New Zealand actor. That's a big assumption, Chris, because the film was shot in New Zealand, you big moron. But yeah, that is Sonny, played by, was it Nathaniel Lees? And as much as I knew Lithgow and Jeffrey Rush were going to be great, this character and this actor's performance really surprised me in the movie, because at the beginning he just seems like he's kind of this average dude. He used to be a rugby player, a world famous rugby player for New Zealand, which comes into play later in the movie. But he is sort of the opposite of Stefan. That's why they don't get along. Stefan's this snobby intellectual, whereas Sonny is just kind of like an everyman, and he tries to relate to Stefan and have conversations, but Stefan just puts him down. And you think it's really not going to play much into the movie. But as it goes along, as I mentioned, they have to build this relationship because Sonny gets bullied really bad by Dave. And he's got like a bad hip and a bad knee. So he can't, again, this plays into what your brain and your spirit want to do versus what your body can. Because this guy was an athlete, a rugby athlete. So or back in his day, he could have defended himself and fought this man. But now he can't because he's just not physically able to. And you could see there are moments in this movie where they have conversations with him and Jeffrey Rush, Stefan, about, just not being able to do these things and your pride and what you want other people, your kids and your grandkids to visit. You don't want them to see what you are in this environment. You want them to think that you're still, this great athlete or this great judge or whatever. You want them to remember you as that, not to basically be getting bullied like a school kid. So he really adds a lot of depth to this movie because you really feel his plight as sort of an opposite to what Stefan is going through because, like I said, he's got grandkids and everything, and just what he can't do, and that pride that comes from being an athlete, a world class athlete, and not being able to do that, and how much that hurts him. So, all three of those performances are great, kept me captivated throughout the film, which is used effectively again. The next positive of the film by the director James Ashcroft. I mean, he knows what he's got here with these actors, so he lets them do what they do best, but he films it amazingly. I could talk about the blips that the judge has, and you just get sort of this weird imagery as he sort of blurs out and comes back. I mentioned that damn red sheet or whatever that he puts up between the, oh my god, it just, every time you see the shadow behind it, it just unnerves you. Or the way that Dave will just be there in the shadow sitting in that goddamn doll. I'm telling you, that thing is creepy as fuck. And it's right in the camera. Sometimes it looms large. It's got these images where it's like it's coming up behind people and you think it's like this big giant monster because everybody's so scared of that damn doll, that damn Jenny Penn, and what they have to do to abide by its rules. But yeah, he does a great job of that. He also does this really cool trick where people will be having conversations and you'll start to hear parts of it and then it kind of fades out and you're losing information, and it kind of, I don't know, pulls you into the film more because you're kind of leaning up towards the screen, like trying to hear every little bit of conversation to get some kind of information about what's going on. Because I will say, and we'll get into this in the negative, for most of the movie, you don't learn a lot about Dave. So again, as you're having there's these conversations with the staff members and stuff, and you're just trying to hear little pieces. But the trick he does with the audio is and pulling the camera back. It's really a great way to pull you into this movie and keep you invested and keep you hanging on every sound. And speaking of sound, the sound design of all all this, him just moving around and everything. Oh, it's just so good. All the noises, just everything, the chaos with this environment. It also, he does a great job of just showing you how life is in these places and how sad it is that we could end up in basically a place where you are a child again. You're back at school and you're getting bullied and you're having to deal with all this stuff. And it gets worse and worse and progresses because Dave starts to do some really horrible, horrible things. So you're really rooting for Stefan and Sonny, but he has, like I said, he holds the cards because he is physically stronger than two of these guys, so he can do what he wants, and the staff just doesn't believe him. So yeah, you really get pulled into this world, this assisted living facility world, and you're just, I don't know, you're just really engrossed. I think it's a great job as a director. It looks great visually, does some weird trippy things from time to time. The camera moves around great. So yeah, like I said, start to finish, I was loving this movie. I know I keep giving away my final verdict, and I guess the final positive, I kind of already touched on this, is just the balance of the psychological horror of this film, the creepiness of it, as well as, you know, the sadness and the reality of getting older and having to struggle with that and come to terms with the fact that you're not a young person anymore and you have to rely on other people and you need other people's help and you can't always fight things that you can't fight. You know what I mean? You can't control the way your body's going to react to something, or if it's just going to let you down at certain points because you're just physically not able to do it, or if you can't really convince people because they don't look at you like an adult, like they look at you like you're a child again, these people in this facility. So you have to fight that as well, try to hold on to your dignity throughout all of it. So yeah, I think it's a really great balance that keeps you invested all the way throughout the whole movie. So let's go ahead and move into the bad of The Rule of Jenny Penn.
Uh-oh, I don't like the sound of that.
And I really couldn't find a lot. These aren't, major negatives to the movie. I will say, as I mentioned, Dave doesn't get a whole lot of backstory, really, for the first, I would say maybe half, 2/3 of the movie. You don't know much about him. He's just sort of this creep, this bully, this mean son of a bitch. And I kind of liked it that way. They do at a point, he has a little bit of a speech they give, and then they have a few things where they kind of give you a clue into how he can move around, play the place, and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't awful. For me, I could have just done with him just being a mean bully who can take advantage of the situation that he's in because he is still strong and can move around and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, again, not a major negative, but at the same time, it would have been fun for it to be a little more ambiguous. I kind of wanted it for most of the part of the movie. That's kind of what it felt like to me, was Heath Ledger's Joker, in that he's just mean, the Joker is just the Joker. And I was kind of like, Dave's just a bully. That's all he is. And that's all I really needed to know. But again, I think it's handled well when they do explain things, and it doesn't over explain anything. You don't have these long soliloquies about, oh, my life back in whatever. It just, yeah, just kind of a little thing where I was like, oh, all right, we could have kept going, but that's fine. And really, the only other negative I had in this movie is that, as I mentioned, Dave moves around a lot in this facility. I think everybody moves around a lot in this facility without people on the staff knowing or seeing. There were points in this movie where I was like, okay, come on, somebody in the staff, especially at this type of place, there's gonna be people everywhere trying to watch, or there's gonna be cameras, there's gonna be stuff to where they can keep up with you, and you can't go out as far as some of the stuff they do. So, but outside of that, those were really the only negatives I had in this movie. So let's go ahead and move on to the nitpicky.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun on the bun.
And again, these are neither good nor bad, just sometimes Hollywoodisms or silly things they put in these movies that make me laugh. Let's see. The first nitpick I have for this movie is they have these key cards that they have to use to get into the rooms and stuff. And very early on, Stefan, he has a lot of issues with that. I just couldn't help but laugh. I'm like, why would you give us old timers some kind of technology we can't use? I could completely relate. It's like when you go to a hotel room and they give you like that card to scan, and it takes you like 12 times to open the door. You're like, beep, beep, click, 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 God damn it, just let me in the room. So when he was fighting with that card, I had a pretty good laugh. I was like, I can relate to that one because I'm old. My next nitpick for the film, and this is a Hollywood-ism, we've got, yes, the appearance of our favorite device to show a weakness in somebody, especially our villain. That would be the inhaler. Dave has an inhaler. It does get brought up, and there is payoff to it, but when I saw it, I just shook my head. God, Hollywood loves their inhalers, don't they? Oh, my God. Puff, 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 puff. We gotta have that in the movie. That's to show they're weak. Oh, you could find something else. I guess I could have put that in the negative, couldn't I? Nah, it was just a nitpick because it's so tropey now that you see it in so many movies. You know, if there's some kind of horror movie, some character in that movie is going to have an inhaler that they need at the right moment, or that can be used against them or something like that. And this movie doesn't fail to live up to that trope. And my final nitpick for this film, as I mentioned, Stefan is an intellectual and he goes around quoting Hemingway and a couple of other books. That shows you how smart I am. I'm like, oh, I don't even remember what books he was quoting. I remember Hemingway. He quoted that a couple of times. But yeah, I couldn't help but laugh because, again, not only is that a trope, someone just knowing all of these quotes from these books and everything like that, but I couldn't help but think, oh, God. And it did make me think about my mortality. About hopefully I will never be at a place like this, but if I ever am, I'll be the one who won't be quoting books. I'll be quoting movies. I'll just be sitting in the corner of some home in a daze, and all of a sudden I'll just yell out, "Have you paid your dues, Jack?" "Yes, sir, the check is in the mail." I'm gonna be a lot of fun in those facilities. No, oh, please, no, please, I don't want to end up like that. All right, anyway, let's not get depressed. This is a fun review. This is a fun review. Let me go ahead and give you my final verdict. If you could tell, I had a blast with this movie. This might be my favorite movie of the year so far. I enjoyed the hell out of it. The performances are great. The direction is really good. It blends the creepiness with a almost depressing, but towards the end, sort of uplifting take on getting older and ending up in one of these places and having to deal with your body just basically giving up on you towards the end of life, but having the resiliency and the pride and the strength to fight back when you need to. Again, Jeffrey Rush and John Lithgow are amazing. Nathaniel Lees does a great job to surprise me. So overall, I would tell you, I would strongly recommend going and watch this in the movie theater and support it. It's a low budget film. Like I said, there was nobody in my movie theater, which is a shame. It really is a shame. But it's funny, the two movies I saw this weekend, I was not expecting to love this one more, and I enjoyed it. I could go back and watch it again. It was that good. So I would again tell you to go see it in a movie theater so you can support it. because it is important to support films like this so they can get made and we can get these directors bigger budgets so they can make better movies and keep going and keep going. But I know the reality of the situation, and if you can't, just wait for it to come on streaming, and as soon as it does, watch it, because you're going to enjoy the hell out of this movie. I don't even think it's an hour and 40 minutes, so it goes by super quick. You're invested all the way through. So yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. As I mentioned, I think so far here in the March, it's been my favorite movie so far. So definitely check out The Rule of Jenny Penn. So that wraps up this review. A little something extra for you this week to have fun with. I will be back towards the end of the week with my movie quote contest winners choice for film for me to review. And it is a doozy. I mentioned last time, I have not seen it. I know it by reputation, but I am excited to watch it and see if it lives up to that reputation. So you're definitely going to want to come back and listen to that. That's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. So again, follow the show, subscribe to it, leave me comments, get in touch with me, play the movie quote contest. So maybe next month you could pick a movie for me to review. Now, before I go, I just want to thank you once again for taking the time out of your day to listen or watch my show. I greatly appreciate you as an audience member. I tell everyone I know I've got the smartest and sexiest audience in all the podcast and YouTube universe, and you never fail to live up to those high standards. Now, as you are traveling around on this blue and green ball, bouncing through the cosmos, I need you to do one thing for me. Go out and do that voodoo that you do so well.
All right, show's over. I'm tired.